international mercenary husband Nathaniel disappeared 3 years ago. Molly only then discovered that the beneficiary of the massive insurance policy he left behind wasn't her name, but his white moonlight Novia. After drifting from place to place in her desperate search for his whereabouts, she finally arrived at Novia's villa doorstep, only to find he had long since changed his name and was living happily ever after. She screamed in utter devastation, stormed inside, and smashed the entire villa to pieces. "You knew full well I waited 4 years to marry you. Why did you fake your death after our wedding just to deceive me?" Nathaniel just knelt straight before her, his eyes filled with guilt and despair. "Molly, Novia is pregnant. I have to stay by her side, otherwise, she'll kill herself." Molly looked at him despairingly, suddenly letting out a laugh, the dryness in her throat thick with the taste of blood. "What about me? Won't you take pity on me?" Molly closed her eyes in despair, feeling as if all the blood in her body was flowing backward. At that moment, she no longer wanted to love Nathaniel anymore. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. At the immigration office, Molly held the money given by Nathaniel and processed the immigration paperwork. The immigration officer looked at the missing spouse column and spoke sympathetically. "You've been searching for 4 years, scouring both domestic and international locations. Do you still want to keep looking?" Yet Molly just smiled calmly and shook her head at him. "I'm done searching. He's already dead. This time when I leave, I won't be coming back." The staff nodded understandingly and handed the receipt back to her. "In 7 days. Once the embassy notifies you via email, you can depart. Until then, you still have the chance to change your mind." Molly suddenly laughed, a laugh filled with despair. "No. I will never regret it." After completing the formalities, Molly finally dialed Nathaniel's number. As soon as the call connected, however, the sweet, coquettish voice of Novia came through instead. "Nathaniel, I really want to eat this flavor of cupcake." Nathaniel spoke helplessly, his tone full of indulgence. "No, Novia, you've already had 2 today. Eating too much isn't good for the baby." Molly's heart felt as if pricked by needles, a dense, throbbing pain. It turned out Novia was pregnant again. But what about her child, now long gone beneath the yellow springs, unable to even cry out? Nathaniel finally realized the call had been connected, his deep voice breaking the silence. "Molly, just tell the assistant directly if you need anything. Use the card I gave you if you need money. I need to accompany Novia for her prenatal checkup now. I'll call you back later." "Okay." Molly lowered her head and asked again, "Have you really forgotten?" Nathaniel remained gentle in his tone on the other end. "Isn't this about discussing compensation? Wait until Novia's child is born, then I'll come back to be with you. We'll never part for all eternity." Molly lowered her eyes. Listening to Nathaniel's promise of eternity on the phone, she let out a bitter, mocking laugh. "No need, there won't be a future for us." The call ended abruptly. Molly drove to the suburbs. The scenery kept receding. And suddenly she remembered how Nathaniel used to pursue her. She had been recognized by her family since childhood and starred in many films. Everyone said she had a bright future and was destined to be a superstar. But her path to stardom was abruptly cut short by an accident when she was 10. Overnight, scandals about her spread everywhere. To protect her, her family made her change her name and attend school incognito. It was at this moment that she met Nathaniel. Nathaniel was the first person who disregarded everything to get close to her. During her most painful times, when her bipolar disorder made her unable to resist lashing out at him, he endured the objects thrown at him, even with bruises and swelling, just to take one step closer to her. Her heart was in turmoil, unable to resist falling for him. She gradually stopped resisting Nathaniel's approach, and their feelings grew warmer, even after 4 full years of marriage. He never forgot a single holiday, big or small. When someone casually asked, he could even tell them the exact number of days, hours, and seconds they had been together. The thing she had never doubted the most was his love for her. But in the 4th week of her pregnancy, Nathaniel suddenly presented her with a massive insurance policy and made a promise. "If I don't return from the mission, this will be your and our child's security." She believed him, wholeheartedly. Nathaniel never came back. And though she was devastated, she couldn't bring herself to touch that money, until she suffered a massive hemorrhage during a difficult childbirth. She sent someone to cash it, only to discover that the beneficiary wasn't her at all. It was a complete scam. The car stopped at a small cemetery. She looked down at the tiny tombstone, and tears instantly fell. "I'm sorry, my baby. Mommy still couldn't get Daddy to come see you." She took out the cakes and milk that children love. Placing them in front of the tombstone, only to discover upon unlocking her phone Nathaniel had just posted a new moment on his social media. In the post, he was pressing his face sweetly against Novia's belly. His eyes filled with tenderness and anticipation. "Daddy can't wait for you to be born soon." Behind him were countless gifts for the newborn. Molly instantly clenched her phone, her breath as if stripped away, her heart feeling pierced by 10,000 swords, riddled with wounds. She should have made a scene, to demand justice for her child who should never have died. Ask Nathaniel if he knows the heartache and bitterness she endured searching for him for 3 long years. Ask Nathaniel if he remembers how he once pressed his face against her belly in ecstasy, yet she did nothing, merely giving a gentle like to that social media post. After 3 exhausting years of struggle, she was utterly drained and unwilling to maintain any connection with Nathaniel. She only rested her head against the tombstone, making a promise to visit their child again next year. She was about to drive away when Nathaniel suddenly called, "Molly, didn't you say you'd take me to see the child? Where is he?" Molly hadn't answered yet when the phone was snatched by Novia. "Sister, Nathaniel has wronged you all these years. We'd like to meet you and make it up to you properly. Actually, back then Nathaniel also wanted to be by your side. It's all my fault for being too weak. I would have completely fallen apart without Nathaniel around. Sister, if you must blame someone, blame me. Just don't blame Nathaniel, okay?" Nathaniel, hearing the tremor in her voice, immediately snatched the phone. His tone laced with warning. "Molly, Novia is pregnant now and shouldn't experience emotional stress. We'll meet at the villa tonight." The call ended, never offering her a question, only a command. Molly parted her lips and suddenly burst into laughter. "It's all right. I don't care anymore. I'll soon give him to you completely." Molly returned to the villa, ready to take her belongings and leave. But the moment she stepped inside, she saw anti-collision strips of all sizes in the living room, and countless gifts dazzling the eye. Novia smiled gently and spoke first. "Nathaniel prepared this specially because he was afraid I might get hurt. I always tell him he's too cautious, but he won't listen." As they were talking, Nathaniel emerged from the kitchen holding a freshly brewed pot of chicken soup. "You're always so childlike. How could I not be careful?" Molly recalled those years spent with him. He was always busy with missions, and her heart ached seeing him live on the edge. She never let him do any household chores. She never expected that Nathaniel, usually cold and aloof, could show such tenderness. Novia pulled out a seat for her. "Don't mind it, sis, let's eat first." Molly initially wanted to refuse, but years of poor eating habits had given her severe stomach problems. The pain was so intense that she had no choice but to sit down and drink the soup, yet the table was filled with all kinds of fish and chicken soups. Molly hadn't touched any for a long time. Nathaniel didn't notice her discomfort and was still gently blowing on a bowl of chicken soup to feed it to Novia at her lips. But Novia found it either too hot or too cold, throwing all her tantrums into the mix. "Nathaniel, I told you I hate wolfberries the most." Nathaniel didn't get angry at all. Instead, he apologized and coaxed her with a tenderness Molly had never seen before. She silently watched the perfect couple, feeling as if even breathing had become slightly difficult. But Novia's sudden scream drew everyone's attention, and Nathaniel rushed over nervously. Only then did I notice Novia's hand had a small, almost invisible burn wound. Molly looked at Nathaniel and let out a panicked cry, her voice trembling slightly. "Novia." In a panic, he picked her up and carried her upstairs, his eyes red as he applied medicine, completely unaware that his frantic movements had knocked over all the soups on the table. Molly couldn't dodge in time, and the scalding soup spilled all over her right arm. She gasped in pain, yet her eyes only followed Nathaniel's figure as he dashed upstairs. In a daze, she remembered Nathaniel once telling her, "Molly, I'll never let you get hurt in this lifetime. Molly, I remember you're allergic to chicken and fish. We'll never have those dishes in our home." Molly turned and walked out of the villa, only realizing the excruciating pain when the wound became a bloody mess. She looked at the lights in the villa and Nathaniel's soothing bedtime story voice, finally realizing how absurd her years of searching for him had been. The one trapped in memories was only herself. She forced herself to perform emergency treatment on her arm in the car, then turned and drove to the hospital. But as soon as she arrived at the hospital, she nearly fainted. Only when she was rushed into the emergency room did she vaguely realize how severe her stomach condition was. The nurse anxiously asked if she had any relatives. As her current condition required immediate surgery, Molly endured the pain and made 27 calls to Nathaniel, but there was still no answer. However, on the 28th call, the line suddenly connected. Before Molly could say anything, Nathaniel urgently spoke first. Molly, Novia just scalded a layer of skin off with chicken soup and is crying terribly. She's pregnant after all, and I remember you have children. You must know how to care for her. Could you look after her for a few days?" At that moment, Molly felt a chill run through her entire body. In the early years of their relationship, he had practically worshipped her, never allowing her to do any hard or tiring work. For her sake, they even hired 4 maids and a chauffeur at home. Now he actually wanted her to take care of another woman. "Nathaniel, you're truly insane. Hurry up, will you?" "Molly, I know you're feeling terrible right now, but after all, Novia is pregnant. We can't just leave her like this. Where are you? I'm coming to find you." Molly hung up the phone and let herself sink into the darkness. The stabbing pain in her stomach made her toss and turn, and the nurse couldn't bear to watch any longer. So she quickly called Nathaniel to come over immediately. It hurts so much." Boundless pain enveloped Molly like a giant net. The moment she fainted, she felt as if something sharp was moving across her body. When she opened her eyes again, the first thing she felt was the pain in her stomach, and her limbs were so numb she could barely move. Her parched throat felt as if it were suffused with threads of blood. "Painkillers, painkillers." Nathaniel heard her voice and finally stepped in from outside the door, gently pulling her body with a pitying hand, softly comforting her. "I'm sorry, Molly. I've given all your painkillers to Novia. I know you're in agony now, but Novia has a child, and her burns are excruciating. I couldn't bear to see her like that. Don't worry, once we get through tonight, I've arranged for the best doctor for you. I won't let you suffer." Molly's eyes dimmed as the pain in her body left her nearly speechless. Scalding tears rolled down the corners of her eyes. She so desperately wanted to ask him, what about her? Did he ever feel a pang of heartache for the agony in her stomach? Before she could finish speaking, the nurse walked in with the medical chart. Nathaniel, as the family member on watch, stood nearby. Seeing what the nurse held in her hand, he quickly stepped forward and asked, "How is her stomach condition?" The nurse stared at Molly's nearly shattered eyes and spoke reluctantly. "Our preliminary diagnosis suggests it might be early-stage stomach cancer. Please prepare yourselves mentally." Nathaniel was still engrossed in messages on his phone and hastily spoke without clearly hearing what the nurse had said. "Oh, as long as it's not a serious illness." The nurse looked surprised, while Molly paled as she took the diagnosis sheet. "Give it to me." Nathaniel suddenly looked up and grabbed Molly's hand, his eyes filled with anxiety. "Molly, Novia has just fallen asleep. The doctor said her pregnancy is unstable and she's lacking nutrients. I need to hurry over to be with her. You have your child. You can have your child keep you company. Novia lost her previous baby to a miscarriage. I can't let her go through that again." Nathaniel said these words without hesitation, then turned and ran toward Novia's VIP ward. Only Molly remained where she was, clutching the medical report tightly in her hand. "Mr. Nathaniel still doesn't know that child had already died, does he?" It happened the very next day after he left. Molly sat quietly on the hospital bed, taking out the portrait hanging around her neck and gently caressing it. "It's all right. Some things don't need to be known by him." Clearly, Molly's ward was just across the hallway from Novia's, yet for 3 whole days, Nathaniel didn't come to see her even once. She watched as he sometimes rushed around exhausted, carrying freshly made ginseng soup, and other times saw him leaning affectionately against Novia's belly with a face full of tenderness. He was so eagerly anticipating the birth of another child, reserving all the tenderness that once belonged solely to her for someone else. Molly's heart shattered into pieces, only then noticing the large amounts of blood spilling from her mouth. On the verge of losing consciousness, she heard someone in the crowd speak out freely, "If any of you want to save her, go ahead, but I won't. She's the one who almost caused Novia to get divorced." The other woman, ugh, how shameless. If it weren't for her, Novia wouldn't have had complications with her pregnancy and still be stuck in the hospital now. Get lost. I hate homewreckers the most. That kind of person should just die already. In a daze, she saw Nathaniel chasing after her urgently. "What are you doing?" Nathaniel scolded those people, but showed no intention of defending her. He picked her up anxiously to find a doctor, but she clutched his clothes tightly and spoke with a hint of bitterness. "Why didn't you explain?" Molly regretted asking as soon as the words left her mouth, especially when she clearly felt Nathaniel stiffen before giving the answer she had expected. "Molly, just bear with it a little longer, okay? Novia is pregnant now and can't handle any stress. Once she safely gives birth, I'll come back and live properly with you." "All right." Molly said nothing, breaking free from his embrace, tacitly agreeing, but Nathaniel didn't know that what she agreed to wasn't just this rumor. but that she had truly given up on him. On the day Molly was discharged from the hospital, Novia was also discharged. Even though she was the one who had been the most seriously ill, Novia was carried princess-style in Nathaniel's arms, his face full of tenderness. "Sister, I'm sorry. Nathaniel was worried I might get hurt and wouldn't let me down. You don't mind, do you?" Molly just glanced lightly before turning away without a word, voluntarily taking a seat in the back. Throughout the journey, the car was filled with Nathaniel and Novia's laughter and joy, while she remained like an outsider, admiring their love. Upon returning to the villa, Molly intended to leave with her belongings but was stopped when Nathaniel grabbed her wrist tightly. "Molly, I'll be back soon. Why don't you just stay here, all right? Once you bring the child over, our family can be reunited." Molly looked at his beaming face and merely scoffed. "So why is it me who has to move here instead of you going back? Nathaniel, have you forgotten where your real home is?" Nathaniel remained silent, only his evasive gaze betraying his thoughts. Molly had no desire to continue the argument. After gathering her essential documents, she prepared to leave. Nathaniel lingered at the door, pleading earnestly. "Molly, I know I've wronged you, but Novia is pregnant now. Just wait until her emotions settle in the next couple of days, and then I'll leave with you, okay? Please wait for me, just one more day, all right?" Molly smiled, feeling there was no point in offering any explanation, no matter what she did, but Nathaniel persisted relentlessly. Just as she was about to walk away, a faint cry came from upstairs. She saw Nathaniel freeze instantly. Then without hesitation, he turned and rushed upstairs. Molly watched his retreating figure, and though her heart was already broken, the pain in that moment was still suffocating. Without hesitation, she turned and walked out of the villa. Only 3 days left, and she would finally escape Nathaniel, never having to care about him again. But when she woke up the next day, the first thing she felt wasn't the warmth of sunlight, but the sound of urgent knocking at the door. She opened the hotel room door and only then saw Nathaniel and Novia standing right outside, their faces full of anxiety. "Sister, you left without saying a word. Both Nathaniel and I were so worried about you." Nathaniel looked at Novia's tear-reddened eyes, his heart aching unbearably. "Molly, don't do such foolish things anymore. Once Novia's pregnancy is over, we'll be together properly." Molly widened her eyes, the words in her heart about to spill out. "But I don't want to be with you anymore." Novia suddenly grabbed Molly's hand and pulled her outside. Nathaniel followed along as they walked down the street. Molly's hand was tightly held by Novia, and she couldn't break free. "Nathaniel, could you go buy my sister and me 2 cups of milk tea? I haven't had any in so long." Nathaniel hesitated for a moment, glancing at the two of them before turning to leave. Novia, however, pulled Molly to sit down in a nearby cafe, her expression calm as still water. "Molly, we need to talk." Molly responded with a hint of surprise, her face full of sarcasm. "What? No more acting like loving sisters this time." Novia bit her lip upon seeing Nathaniel's figure. She suddenly fell to her knees with a pained expression on her face. "Molly, I know it was wrong of me to fall in love with Nathaniel back then, but these past 4 years have been the happiest of my life. I never had a father growing up, and my mother never showed me affection. I know Nathaniel originally loved you, but as you can see, had you not come looking for him, he would have loved only me for the rest of his life. Nathaniel gave me the love I craved most. He indulged me in everything. So Molly, since you have everything, why not just give Nathaniel to me, please?" But Molly found it utterly ridiculous. She was clearly the one who had intruded into someone else's marriage. Yet now she was playing the victim and asking for forgiveness. Disgusted beyond words, her eyes filled with scorn as she turned to leave, Novia jerked her head up upon hearing Nathaniel's voice, immediately stumbling toward the table while letting out instant cries of "Ouch! Ouch!" Molly was startled, realizing what she intended to do, and hurriedly tried to pull her back. Just as this scene was witnessed clearly by Nathaniel, who had rushed in, he growled, pushing Molly away with bloodshot eyes. "Novia!" Molly was abruptly shoved aside, her forehead striking the corner of the table, instantly staining crimson. Dazed from the impact, she looked up only to see Novia lying weakly in Nathaniel's arms. Don't blame my sister, it's all my fault for daring to want you. Honestly, just having you by my side when I'm pregnant would have been enough for me." After uttering these words, she fainted perfectly on cue, leaving only intermittent moans escaping her lips. Molly saw for the first time Nathaniel in a rage, his fists clenched tightly, the intense murderous glare in his eyes seeming to tear her to pieces. "Molly, if anything happens to Novia's child, I will never let you off." Molly pressed her hand against the wound on her forehead, feeling as if the world was spinning around her. But she had no time to hesitate, she needed to leave quickly. After all, Nathaniel would never believe her. She hailed a taxi to the airport, the wound on her forehead already scabbed over, tangled with dried strands of hair. Driver, to the airport. A long-lost sense of security washed over her as she drowsily closed her eyes. When I opened my eyes again, what I saw wasn't the airport, but Nathaniel's eyes, cold as frost. Molly, I told you Novia is pregnant. And you still dared to make her kneel before you. What kind of heart do you have? Molly faced him coldly, feeling the piercing sting of despair for the first time. She fell on her own. It had nothing to do with me. Nathaniel, when have you ever believed me? But Nathaniel's eyes showed no hesitation as he dragged her straight into the emergency room. He roughly shoved her toward the doctor, like a warden delivering a sentence. Her blood type matches Novia's. Take hers. Then, ignoring her struggles, he pinned her arm down. His words filled with nothing but resentment and disgust for her. Molly, if it weren't for Novia pleading for you, I would have killed you long ago. Molly suddenly laughed upon hearing this, her entire body trembling with the force of it. Then just kill me. Go ahead and do it. Nathaniel, the thing I regret most in this life is meeting you. Nathaniel's eyes flickered slightly, but the pressure from his hands didn't relent in the slightest. The massive needle pierced into the flesh, and what she felt first wasn't the heart-wrenching pain, but a bone-chilling coldness. Molly closed her eyes, feeling only an overwhelming, unbearable cold throughout her body. She remembered the early days when she had just gotten together with Nathaniel, how he wouldn't let her suffer the slightest injury. Even a small accidental cut would leave him so anxious he couldn't eat for half the day. But now, his tenderness belonged to someone else. He had long forgotten how much she feared pain. Blood was continuously drawn, and the large bruises at the wound sites made her whole body tremble uncontrollably. 1 blood bag, 2 blood bags. By the end, Molly no longer had the strength to speak. Her head slumped onto the table as she completely lost consciousness. Nathaniel finally snapped out of it and let go. Seeing the unconscious Molly, for a moment, he felt a pang of guilt. But Novia was still moaning in the hospital room, stealing his heart once more. He turned to the medical staff and spoke. Wake her up, give her some medicine and keep drawing blood. Novia said, she won't leave until she stops screaming in pain. Molly felt like a dying fish. For the first time realizing how peaceful death could be, she slowly closed her eyes, the prolonged lack of food making her stomach pain even more unbearable. For nearly the entire night, she was trapped in a cycle of having blood drawn, passing out, being woken up, and having more blood taken. She waited until the very last time, when even the desire to breathe had nearly vanished, leaving only the hollow motions of a walking corpse as she extended her arm, covered in purple-black needle marks, to the medical staff. Mr. Nathaniel, we really can't draw any more. We've reached the limit. Any further could be life-threatening. Nathaniel hesitated, for he too saw Molly's deathly pale face and her nearly unrecognizable arm. He almost rushed over to help her up, but Novia's faint cough made him turn around immediately. Go save her first, I'll be right there. But this right there turned into nearly a full day and night. Molly lay on the hospital bed, mustering all her strength to grab the nurse taking her temperature, her voice faint. Tell him, let me die. The nurse's eyes widened in shock as the heart monitor suddenly flatlined. She dashed out, waving her arms and shouting for help. Bed 23 has lost vital signs. Bed 23 has lost vital signs. Nathaniel stood at the elevator entrance, hearing every word with perfect clarity. The scalding chicken soup in his hands crashed to the ground. He suddenly dashed towards room 23. Molly underwent 6 hours of treatment before being taken off the operating table. It felt like she had been trapped in a long dream where the man's face remained blurred, yet the accumulated pain of those days made her retch the moment he drew near. Get out. She suddenly opened her eyes, meeting Nathaniel's weathered face. He looked like he hadn't slept in ages, with red veins in his eyes and dark circles prominently displayed. The moment he saw her wake up. You're awake, Molly. Nathaniel abruptly sat up, frantically searching for a doctor. I'm sorry. Nathaniel stood behind her and spoke up first. Molly didn't react. Even her breathing became shallow for a moment. This time it's all because of me. It's my fault. I'll have my assistant compensate you with an extra apartment. Molly sat on the bed, her eyes hollow as she laughed through tears, hurling everything around her with force, only able to let out a faint, monotonous sound. Get out, all of you. Nathaniel remained standing there, letting the fragments cut into his body. For the rest of that day, he stayed by Molly's side, Despite being beaten black and blue and cursed at mercilessly, he continued to help her practice pronunciation as before. At night, he would light a lamp by the bedside and tirelessly tell her stories day and night. Everything seemed to return to how it was before, but Molly knew that Nathaniel was the kind of person who hated owing others anything the most. So he is atoning for his mistakes. He would warm the 4 bottle in his arms over and over, and place a piece of candy after the bitter medicine. His kindness was so meticulous that it almost made Molly have illusions she shouldn't have. Does he love her again? But, late tonight, Molly got up to find water due to a sore throat. The villa corridor was dim and dark, and she instinctively walked toward the lit doorway, but the noise from the other side made her stop in her tracks. And the brothers' clamor caused Nathaniel to frown slightly. You can make noise, just don't wake her up. The brothers nodded understandingly, toning down their movements, while Novia pouted in dissatisfaction. Nathaniel, you've been with her for so long. When will you spend time with me? Nathaniel didn't speak, just dotingly pinched her little face, making the brothers envious as they all started teasing. The turn for truth or dare landed before Nathaniel. And the brothers exchanged knowing smiles before asking the question they'd long wanted to pose. Nathaniel, why did you fake your death and leave back then, when Molly loved you so much? Nathaniel's expression remained unchanged, his eyes filled with tenderness as he looked at Novia. Because Novia is pregnant, which makes her slightly more important than Molly. The brothers were instantly moved by his answer, all turning their heads in surprise. Nathaniel sat in the center like a victor, carelessly failing to notice the trembling figure behind that door. Molly desperately covered her mouth, refusing to let herself become such a pitiful sight. She clearly knew Nathaniel didn't love her, knew she couldn't keep loving Nathaniel. So why did her heart ache so much? It felt as if someone had scooped out a bloody wound in her heart with a spoon, bleeding out her tears. All those once beautiful memories now turned into blades. Molly numbly returned to her bed. She remained sitting upright on the bed all night, so that when Nathaniel came the next day, he was slightly moved by her pale complexion. Molly looked at the boy who no longer resembled the one in her memories and suddenly spoke, her eyes burning with calm disgust, his touch even nauseating her to the point of retching. Nathaniel, you don't need to do these things for me. I find you disgusting. Nathaniel paused mid-action, listening to her curses, just as he was about to say something more. Molly's next words sounded like a final farewell. Go find Novia. I don't need you anymore. Molly spent her last day at Nathaniel's villa, and as she was preparing to leave, Nathaniel spoke up. I'll walk you out. Molly initially declined, but Nathaniel firmly picked up her luggage, placed it in the car, and practically shoved her inside. The entire way, neither of them spoke, leaving only the sound of their breathing in the air. Where are you going? Back to City J or your hometown? Molly knew it was okay to tell him, but even now, she still spun a lie. Going away for a few days to relax. Nathaniel remained silent, but eventually made a promise. Once Novia safely gives birth, I'll come back to you, and then I'll never leave you again. Molly lowered her head. Hearing these words, she smiled imperceptibly and muttered to herself under her breath, too bad. We'll never have any relationship again. Nathaniel heard her say something but still couldn't make it out clearly. He asked again. Molly had already returned to her usual indifferent demeanor. Nothing. Halfway through the journey, Nathaniel's phone suddenly rang violently. Ignoring the danger, he answered the call. And the intimate photo of Novia with him on the screensaver deeply stung Molly's eyes. Nathaniel, come quickly, there's so much blood. I'm so scared. The car screeched to a sudden halt. Molly slammed her wrist against the seat, leaving it red and swollen. Nathaniel hadn't even spoken yet when Molly already tactfully stepped out of the car. Go find her, don't worry about me. Nathaniel wore a face full of apology, but his trembling hands had long betrayed his choice. Molly took down the luggage and locked eyes with Nathaniel. Nathaniel was about to drive off when suddenly his heart raced, as if something was about to be lost. He hurriedly chased after her, his voice panicked. Molly, is there anything else I can help you with? Molly looked up into his eyes and spoke again. Then, return the peace bracelet I once gave you, and I'll exchange it for a new one. Nathaniel hesitated before speaking again. Molly, I've already given that peace bracelet to Novia. You know, she's just become pregnant and keeps having nightmares. After she's fully delivered, I'll come back to you. All right. He said this somewhat cautiously, but Molly just squinted and smiled, telling him not to mind it and to leave quickly. Nathaniel finally breathed a sigh of relief and drove away. Molly watched his retreating figure, touching the peace bracelet on her wrist. Memories flooded back. how she had kowtowed 99 times to pray for this peace bracelet for him. And how he had tearfully vowed never to take it off, but now, for the sake of another woman, he had taken off the peace bracelet she had painstakingly prayed for and given it to her. Her love was trampled like a bracelet, the pain suffocating her. Without a second thought, she turned and hurried to the airport. Just before boarding the plane, she snapped the bracelet on her wrist in half and tossed it into the trash. Her phone's WeChat flashed with one last message, sent by Nathaniel, Molly. "Wait for me to find you." Molly didn't reply, just deleted all his WeChat contacts and blocked him completely. With the roar of the plane in her ears, Molly finally let out a sigh of relief, the last tear sliding down her cheek. Nathaniel. She would never have to love him again. Nathaniel looked up just as a plane roared past overhead. His heart trembled slightly as he realized Molly was already gone. That night, Nathaniel returned home very late. The house stood empty. Every last trace of Molly had vanished, even her scent had faded away. His body's instinctive discomfort made Nathaniel extremely uneasy. His hands trembled slightly, and even his entire heart couldn't help but quiver. He placed his fist against his chest, telling himself it would soon be over. The promise between him and Novia would soon be over. Novia had already returned home from the hospital, staying by his side almost without leaving a single step. Every time he wanted to do something on his own, she would start crying with reddened eyes. "Nathaniel, I haven't given birth yet. Are you thinking of abandoning me again?" Nathaniel froze slightly, his heart still aching faintly. "How could that be, Novia? Don't overthink it," he instinctively comforted her. But his mind was filled with the image of that girl who stubbornly wiped away her tears rather than bow her head. That night, he unexpectedly drank himself into a slight stupor. By the time he reached his doorstep, his stomach was churning violently. Overcome by dizziness, he was helped to bed and instinctively called out that name, Molly. Molly had never been good at brewing tea over the years, but she excelled at making sobering-up tea. It pained her to see him forcing himself to drink despite his inability to handle alcohol. But now, his words would never receive a response again. Novia turned pale upon hearing those words while holding the sobering-up tea. She threw the entire bowl of medicine on the ground, her voice sharp and piercing. "Are you thinking of Molly again? If that's the case, I won't disturb your life anymore. I'll let you go find her." After saying these words, she walked toward the windowsill, as if she might fall at any moment. Nathaniel's heart suddenly panicked, and he hurriedly spoke up. "Stop joking, Novia. I'm already with you now." Yet as he said this, his own voice faltered with uncertainty. He didn't know where his suspicion came from. After much thought, the image of Molly's retreating figure suddenly flashed through his mind. Novia made him swear again that he loved her most. After fussing for quite a while, she finally jumped into his arms, sobbing, "Nathaniel, you're all I have now." That night, Novia slept beside Nathaniel. But he remained awake for a long time. An indescribable emotion gripped his heart. He clutched at his chest, feeling as though he could no longer breathe. The assistant saw his figure and couldn't help but remind him again with a heavy heart, "Mr. Nathaniel, if you go after Molly now, there might still be time. Once she truly settles down, there will be no chance left between you and her." Nathaniel gripped the railing tightly, forcing his face to remain calm. He admitted to himself that he was somewhat unsettled by Molly's departure, though he wouldn't acknowledge it. Molly no longer loved him. "It's possible. She still loves me. She'll forgive me." Nathaniel turned and entered the room, leaving only the assistant sighing alone. He understood that Molly would never forgive Mr. Nathaniel. Another day passed like this for Nathaniel, and he could hardly bear not having any news from Molly anymore. He had endured for nearly 3 years, thinking that once Novia gave birth, he could return to her, but he never expected that Molly would find him. "My heart is flustered, terribly flustered." But Novia remained completely unaffected, dragging him out shopping. She bought all sorts of expensive bags, perfumes, and even clothes, holding Nathaniel's hand as she coquettishly spoke. "Nathaniel, can we stay together forever?" Nathaniel didn't answer, but the calmness of his heart betrayed his refusal. "We agreed back then. Your father saved my life in the rainforest. I'd leave you with a child, and then I could go be with Molly." Novia smiled with a calm surface, only clenching her palm when her gaze dropped downward. Molly, always Molly, she was Novia's lifelong nightmare. She never believed a man could love a woman so deeply, that with just a little manipulation, he'd come running. It's been 3 years, yet he remains gentle on the surface while being as cold as ice to her behind her back. Nathaniel had already walked ahead, carefully opening the car door for her. Her long nails pierced her palm, drawing blood, Yet Nathaniel only handed her ointment indifferently upon seeing it. Be mindful of your emotions these days, you're about to give birth soon. Novia smiled instead, her gaze fixed on Nathaniel's profile, filled with nothing but sheer possessiveness. What if she can't give birth? What if she pretends to have a miscarriage like before, Nathaniel? If I could trap you for 3 years, I can trap you for another 30. That night, Novia voluntarily let Nathaniel rest properly while she went for her prenatal checkup alone. Nathaniel looked at her with slight suspicion, but Novia's eyes immediately reddened, tears welling up on cue. Are you still doubting that I might play tricks? I've had you for 3 years now, and I'm already content. Nathaniel frowned slightly before turning around to arrange for several bodyguards to escort her to the hospital. Novia arrived at the hospital, instructed the bodyguards to wait outside, and cautiously glanced around before speaking to the doctor in front of her. I don't want this child. How can I have an abortion without harming my body? The love potion you gave me last time was completely useless. He didn't react at all. If I hadn't found another man afterward, I would have been exposed long ago. The doctor wasn't surprised by her reaction. He simply took out another small packet of white powder and handed it to her, speaking with a tone of resignation. Young lady, is it really worth it? It's just one man. You can have as many as you want. Novia snorted coldly and turned to leave. Focus on your task. The rest is none of your concern. She clenched the powder in her hand, her eyes brimming with triumph. There are plenty of men to be had, but the one she desires is Nathaniel alone. But she didn't know, Nathaniel was just on the other side of the door at that moment, coldly hearing every single word she said with perfect clarity. Novia walked out the door, leaving with the bodyguards, brushing past Nathaniel as she went, yet his masterful concealment skills ensured no one detected his presence. Nathaniel stared at Novia's retreating figure for a long time before finally stepping out and making his first call to his assistant. Help me find out where Molly went, and by the way, order the most expensive roses from France for me. I'm going to pick her up. Novia returned home to find Nathaniel absent. A woman's sixth sense made her first reaction one of frenzy. She frantically called Nathaniel, but without exception, every call was hung up. Novia was completely panicked. If Nathaniel abandoned her, all her efforts over the years would be in vain. Nathaniel, where are you? My stomach hurts so much. She kept leaving messages on Nathaniel's phone until an hour later, Nathaniel finally returned. But the moment he arrived home, an antique porcelain cup was hurled violently at his face. Nathaniel, where have you been? Did you go see that woman again? I'm telling you, I won't allow it. If you look for her again, I'll kill her and send her to you. Novia went mad, as if she would throw Nathaniel into the sea the next second, but Nathaniel showed no reaction. Holding the vegetables he had just bought and preparing to go into the kitchen to cook, Novia was ignored for the first time, but when she saw Nathaniel holding the vegetables, she realized she had wronged him, but she wouldn't comfort him. She wanted him to come apologize to her first, but during the meal, he didn't speak to her. When drawing the bath, he didn't speak to her. Even when resting in bed, he turned his body away, refusing to utter a single word to her. Novia finally realized the severity of the situation and got up early the next morning to cling to his departing figure. Don't go, Nathaniel. I know you and I, but I love you so much, hopelessly infatuated with you. You can't just abandon me like this. Nathaniel remained silent, still meticulously preparing the tea. Novia would only drink Ceylon black tea, at precisely 30 degrees, and even the water had to be the purest, otherwise, she would go mad. Yet Nathaniel seemed to remember every troublesome detail with perfect clarity. Novia watched Nathaniel's figure, and a wave of fear surged within her. Nathaniel, you're not allowed to leave me. Nathaniel remained silent, merely placing the tea in front of her, calm as a still sea, as if he might erupt the next moment. The due date is near, emotions must remain steady. For the entire 3 days leading up to the due date, Nathaniel stayed by Novia's side. Meanwhile, Novia's sense of losing him grew increasingly severe. She began secretly taking medication, and in places Nathaniel couldn't see, she swallowed every last one of the special pills the doctor had given her. In the evening, a sudden pain shot through my stomach. Novia, thinking the medicine had taken effect, immediately pretended to be in agony and began to plead. Nathaniel, my stomach hurts so much, come and check on me. Her voice received no response. Instead, Nathaniel stood at the doorway, placing the alarm clock on the table. Only 8 hours left. The tenderness is gone. Nathaniel is now filled with nothing but intense hatred. Novia was rushed to the hospital, but the pain in her belly made it impossible for her to think clearly. The nurse by her side urged her to take deep breaths quickly. The baby was about to be born, and she needed to push hard. Novia was startled, for she knew she had taken an abortion pill. There was no way she could deliver the baby safely. She frantically grabbed Nathaniel's arm by the bedside. Her nails dug into his arm, leaving behind several bleeding wounds. When exactly did you find out? Nathaniel instructed the nurse to take good care of her. Unwilling to say another word to her, Novia looked at Nathaniel, and the fear in her heart finally erupted. You can't leave, you promised to take care of me for a lifetime. What am I supposed to do if you go? Her voice was eventually swallowed by the agony of childbirth, and by the time she was brought out again, Nathaniel was already waiting by her hospital bed. The paper contract in his hand was held just like that as Novia spoke. I switched your medication, I'm sorry. Novia didn't care for his tenderness at this moment, snatching the contract and tearing it to pieces instantly. Why, haven't I been good enough to you? In what way have I wronged you? She continued to play the role of the innocent, virtuous woman, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed uncontrollably, trying to embrace Nathaniel. Why can't you truly love me? But Nathaniel just looked at the men outside and raised his hand to let them in. Novia's face instantly turned pale. The men came one by one, almost filling the entire space. No, filthy memories pierced through Novia's heart. She grabbed Nathaniel's hand and told him forcefully, no, it's not true, really not, I don't know them. But the leading man suddenly rushed over nervously, his face full of anxiety. Novia, whose child is this really? Novia told him to get lost, but how could she forget that night of passion? She dared not raise her head, dared not meet Nathaniel's gaze. Nathaniel gathered all his belongings and turned to walk out of the hospital room. Novia called out to him one last time, the pain still evident in her eyes. Did you know from the very beginning that it wasn't your child? Did you never love me at all? Nathaniel paused in place for what felt like an eternity, a cold glint flashing in his eyes as he spoke with unwavering determination. Yes, in this lifetime I've only ever loved Molly. Nathaniel rushed back to City J, the place where he and Molly had always lived together. While he went to repurchase the villa where he and Molly used to live, he also sent a message to his assistant, help me check Molly's location, I'll start tidying up first, also send me all the information about that child as well. Then, he began shopping. The bedding, sofa, and chairs that Molly once loved were all restored by him in exact replicas. He didn't know how else to win her heart, so he resorted to the most ordinary way. That is, to restore everything to how it was. He hoped this would allow him to return to the past. Even regarding the child, he began to imagine everything about her. He hoped it would be a girl, preferably resembling Molly a little. Even if it were a boy, Molly's child, whatever it might be, he would love it. Molly and the child have endured a lot of hardship over the years, and he is determined not to let them suffer anymore. Nathaniel spent an entire day and night tidying up at home. Yet he showed no signs of fatigue. Suddenly, he came across old photographs. The villa had remained uninhabited since it was sold years ago, leaving everything from the past perfectly preserved. To his surprise, he discovered that someone had written words on the back of his photograph. The font was all too familiar to him. It was Molly, and the words on the photo behind him were three deep ones. I hate you. Nathaniel's heart suddenly stopped, and even everything around him became unreal. Molly hates me. Why? The assistant's phone suddenly rang, and he reflexively answered, only to hear the other end hesitantly speak. Mr. Nathaniel, you need to brace yourself. Everything I'm about to say is true. Miss Molly and the others have had a very hard time these years, even that child, he's been dead for a long time. Nathaniel's phone instantly fell to the ground. His right arm suddenly went numb, and not a sound could escape his throat. What's going on? Didn't I tell you to transfer the money to them? What happened? Nathaniel forced the words out through his throat. The assistant grew even more fearful, ignoring Nathaniel's questions, and proceeded to reveal the entire truth. I did send them money, but that money never reached their hands. Instead, it was taken by the Moore family, who then drove them out of their home. Molly had no choice but to seek work elsewhere, but she was already pregnant at the time and couldn't find suitable employment. In the end, she was reduced to begging on the streets. With every word the assistant spoke, Nathaniel's face grew darker. Then, that child, on the very day Molly gave birth, died during childbirth. Miss Molly started working everywhere to find your whereabouts, hardly living a good life, until finally, she found you at Novia's place. Nathaniel's heart was shattered. He couldn't believe it. Couldn't even imagine how much hardship Molly had endured to find him. No, Molly, His tears fell to the ground, the pain in his heart making it impossible for him to breathe. Where is she now? Where exactly is she now? The assistant was utterly terrified, stammering as he spoke. I haven't found her whereabouts yet, but I did find the child's grave, located in the cemetery on the outskirts of City J. Mr. Nathaniel, do you want to? The phone had already been hung up. Nathaniel hurriedly made his way to the outskirts. Before that grave, he finally met his own child, Paige. It was a girl. He couldn't imagine what she looked like. Molly must have been in such pain when she learned of her death. He finally burst into tears, overwhelmed by boundless sorrow. Why? Why didn't you tell me? His throat suddenly tightened as he remembered. Molly had told him, right when she first found him, tomorrow, you and I will go see the child together. But at that time, he didn't care at all. He only wanted to take good care of Novia. As long as Novia finished giving birth, he could regain his freedom and be with Molly again. But he didn't know that he had already broken Molly's heart. No wonder on the day she left. There was nothing left in her eyes but exhaustion and endless despair. She was utterly disappointed in him and would never forgive him again. Agony swept over him, causing Nathaniel's body to collapse instantly. He let out a pained wail. His eyes filled with nothing but guilt and unease, but he had no time to dwell on his sorrow now. Molly was still waiting for him. He had to find her and win back her heart. The assistant's final message also came through, detailing Molly's flight and the location where she had landed. Nathaniel booked the earliest flight, and the moment he sat on the plane, he finally felt waves of stinging pain radiating through his body. All the once beautiful memories flooded his heart, and he told himself silently that he must find Molly again. He had lost her once, he couldn't afford to lose her a second time. Nathaniel went to Country A, visiting every state, every corner, yet nowhere did he catch even a whisper of Molly's voice. In desperation, he turned himself into a walking billboard, printing Molly's photo on it. Wherever he went, he shouted her name at the top of his lungs. Molly, I was wrong. He instantly caused a sensation worldwide, with media outlets continuously interviewing him, asking who the woman in the photo was. With guilt and sorrow written all over his face, he simply said, "She was my lost love." This matter has caused quite a stir, and many people know that a handsome man from the East is searching for his lost lover. Molly naturally saw it too. It had been nearly half a year since she last saw him, and suddenly seeing him again, she only felt he had become much more unfamiliar. Nathaniel had grown thinner, even appearing somewhat dispirited, his face weathered with hardship. Basically, every place he went, if he found nothing, he would immediately move on to the next. Matthew walked in just in time to see his girlfriend staring intently at the computer screen. He had thought it might be some amusing variety show, but upon seeing the face on the screen, his expression instantly darkened. That was his enemy, the man he had hated all his life. It was him whom Molly took away from his side and left her broken. "Molly," he called out to her, only to see his girlfriend, as if nothing had happened, with a slight smile at the corners of her mouth. "Are you out of your mind? What's so funny about seeing your ex? Have you forgotten how disgusting he was to you back then?" Matthew couldn't contain his anger and spoke through gritted teeth, but Molly just shook her head. "I just think it's ridiculous how he pretends to be so devoted. When I was still around, he never reflected on himself. Now that I've left, he suddenly becomes the most affectionate person. Isn't that laughable? I never want to see him again." Matthew finally relaxed, but even if his girlfriend let him off, he certainly wouldn't. With that, he coaxed Molly to go eat, then took a photo of the man on the computer screen with his phone and sent it to his friend. "Give him a hard time tonight. I don't want to see him." That night, when everyone was asleep, Nathaniel was cornered in an alley by a group of thugs. "So it's you. You're the most affectionate man. How ridiculous." Nathaniel was beaten to a pulp and left beside a trash can, yet almost no one offered him a helping hand. The more others acted this way, the more he believed it was Molly's way of testing him, that she didn't want him to know she was right there. This made Matthew so furious his veins bulged. Watching Molly sleeping peacefully on the couch, he felt anger for the first time. "Damn it, then I'll play along with you properly." He circulated his sister's photo across Southeast Asia, leveraging capital to create hype. Everyone knew the woman in the man's heart was in Southeast Asia. Nathaniel naturally found out too, but something felt off to him, yet that surge of joy overwhelmed his mind. By the time he had searched every country in Southeast Asia and found no trace, Matthew released the news that the woman had already gone missing. This time, everyone said the woman's life was in danger and urged him to give up. Nathaniel looked at the message on his phone and lowered his head helplessly. Would he really never see Molly again? That night, he bought a plane ticket back to his home country, but just as he was about to return home, Matthew took Molly out for a drive. The mercenary's intuition made Nathaniel turn his head instantly. The joy in his eyes broke through all barriers at that moment, his eyes welling up with tears. "Molly, I finally found you," yet he never acted rashly. Fearing he might frighten Molly, moreover, he had already noticed someone new by her side. His gaze darkened as he looked at him. Like observing prey that could be easily killed, he wouldn't allow anyone to covet his Molly. He called his assistant once again and bought the house next to Molly's. Thus, during the day, he watched Molly sleep until 10, then groggily get up to water the flowers. Her speech wasn't yet fluent, limited to simple words, but she was very well liked. And the elderly women in the neighborhood adored her. In the evening, she would read on the grass, petting the dogs and cats beside her. She was living in such bliss that Nathaniel began to hallucinate. Did she truly no longer need him? Yet the man by Molly's side filled him with unbearable hatred, his intimate gestures, even cradling her to sleep in his arms. That night, he watched as the man entered the villa with flowers. When ambiguous sounds drifted through, Nathaniel finally snapped. He rushed out of the room abruptly, his eyes filled with bloodlust, but the moment he entered the room, he met Molly's icy, emotionless gaze. "Nathaniel, you came after all, but I hate you. I can never be with you again." The gun in her hand was pointed straight at his eyes. Nathaniel remained silent, the madness in his eyes startling both of them for a moment. But then, Matthew kissed Molly on the forehead. "Nathaniel, did you hear me clearly? She doesn't like you anymore. The one she likes now is me." Nathaniel refused to believe it and still tried to rush over to grab Molly's arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you've suffered so much before. I promise I'll never make you sad again. Molly, I can't live without you." Molly's expression remained cold, a kind of coldness Nathaniel had never seen before. "But we're no longer connected. You're legally dead. And, I don't care anymore." Nathaniel clenched his wrist tightly. Molly's every word pierced his heart like a sharp sword. The pain left him speechless, his eyes filled with nothing but despair. "Molly, give me one more chance. I promise, I swear." Molly raised her eyes with a bitter smile, though she told herself not to be sad. Seeing Nathaniel's shameless demeanor still brought her to the brink of collapse. "What more chances should I give you? The chance to hurt me again, or the chance to deceive me once more?" "Nathaniel, you've been pretending to be dead for so many years. I've long considered you truly dead. You'll never have another opportunity to mistreat me. Now, get out of my and my husband's house." Her anger was so intense that even her gun-holding hand trembled slightly. Nathaniel stood there stubbornly, refusing to yield an inch. Matthew also darkened his expression, as he certainly didn't want his Molly to shoulder the burden again. "Nathaniel, didn't you want a chance? I'll give you one. Let's both pursue Molly. If you can win her heart and make her forgive you, I'll step aside." Nathaniel agreed, and as he left, his gaze lingered longingly on Molly. In the following days, Molly's world began to revolve around the two of them. Nathaniel cooked breakfast for her every day. Matthew would prepare her luggage for the trip. Molly was utterly disgusted. She had no appetite for anything Nathaniel made. She threw it all in the trash right in front of him, then turned and left with Matthew. Matthew wore a smug expression as he carried her belongings for her. Nathaniel was disheartened for a moment, but quickly pulled himself together and followed them. The two men competed to pay for her. Molly and anything she fancied would be bought by them in less than a second. The trio arrived at the flower shop. Nathaniel suddenly thought of something and rushed in first. When he came out, he was holding a large bouquet of French roses, but Molly's face still showed only disgust as she harshly threw the roses to the ground. "Don't you know, I'm allergic to pollen, and besides, roses aren't even my favorite." Her eyes reddened. She wasn't heartless. Those painful memories were something she desperately wanted to forget, but she couldn't forget. Couldn't forget Nathaniel abandoning her in despair, couldn't forget the agony of discovering the insurance policy was fake. And couldn't forget, he had lived with another woman for so long and even had a child with her. This game, Molly couldn't play anymore. She turned and left, leaving only Nathaniel standing there alone. In his heart, only painful struggles remained. Molly went home and went upstairs without saying another word. Matthew clenched his fists downstairs, wishing he could knock Nathaniel down right then and there. But in the end, he didn't do it. He understood that Nathaniel was Molly's unresolved issue. All he could do was help her untangle it, but Molly hadn't reacted for a long time. Suddenly sensing something was wrong, he rushed upstairs and saw Molly's pale, weak face. Her wrist hung limply to the side, the crimson wound instantly stinging Matthew's eyes. I hate you, I really hate you. Matthew panicked and rushed Molly to the hospital. At the emergency room entrance, Nathaniel, having heard the news, arrived as well. Matthew punched him squarely on the bridge of the nose, his eyes brimming with anguish. Why did you have to show up? Why torment her again? She had already moved on. Don't you know that all you've ever brought her is pain? Nathaniel let himself be hit, looking as if he'd aged 10 years in an instant. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for her. I really am sorry for her. Matthew's knuckles were bleeding. He sat down and started smoking, the smoke swirling around, while Nathaniel remained standing stubbornly. When she first arrived, she locked herself in the apartment and almost died. Her stomach condition was severe. She couldn't eat anything. At her worst, she just wanted to die. Nathaniel, this is all your fault. Nathaniel was shocked once more, never realizing that his very existence had caused Molly so much pain. Matthew let out a deep sigh and spoke again. If you truly love her, let her go. Without you, she'll only be happier. In the days that followed, Nathaniel never appeared again. Molly stayed in the hospital, unable to eat anything. Matthew kept talking to her, reminiscing about their past. They grew up together, attended the same elementary school and middle school, but only went to separate universities. She went to a top-tier university in their home country, while he was sent abroad to study due to his poor grades. It was in that year that everything changed. He was eagerly planning his confession, but on the very day he returned home, she sweetly told him, "Nyanin, I have a boyfriend now. He treats me very well and doesn't let me do anything. I want to be with him for the rest of my life." Matthew disagreed. But even if he disagreed, there was nothing he could do. That confession was never spoken aloud. But now, holding Molly's bloody arm, with tears in his eyes, he finally spoke. "Is it too late to say I like you now?" Molly closed her eyes in pain. How could she not know of his affection? But she was no longer the person she once was. She understood that Matthew had far better options and didn't need to fixate on her. Yet Matthew gently kissed her forehead, his eyes filled with nothing but endless longing. "You've come back to me, so I'll take that as your agreement." He paused, tears falling on Molly's face, then spoke again. "Then can you live well, for my sake? If you die, I'll be heartbroken for the rest of my life." Molly didn't answer, only clasped his hand in hers. Closing her eyes, she returned his kiss for the first time. Whispered a Matthew could barely hear, "I'd be willing to spend my whole life with you." Little did they know, Nathaniel was right at the door. Having heard everything clearly, Molly got married, just 5 days after accepting Matthew's confession. On the wedding day, Molly wore a pure white wedding dress, with tears of happiness in her eyes. "I'm sorry for making you wait so long." Matthew just held her tightly and told her, "No matter how long I wait, it's okay, as long as it's you, I'm willing." After saying this, he picked Molly up and spun her around, grinning from ear to ear. The guests below watched the newlyweds and applauded for them one after another. But suddenly, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Novia appeared at the wedding scene with reddened eyes at some point, her crimson gaze fixed on Molly. "Do you still love her now?" Molly only then realized that Nathaniel was also at the wedding venue. He ran over forcefully, attempting to restrain Novia. "Novia, what madness is this?" But Novia kept swinging the dagger, startling everyone at the wedding as they scrambled to flee. She finally saw Molly and burst into loud laughter. "I hate you, but what I hate most is her. Why does she get everything I want without having to give anything in return? Even you always reserve that gentleness for her." "Nathaniel, tell me quickly, do you love me or not?" Nathaniel didn't turn around, hearing her words. He only responded in a low voice, from start to finish, "You're not even worth one of her fingers." Novia lowered her head and chuckled darkly twice. "Is that so? Fine, then I'll send you both to hell together." She suddenly charged forward. By the time Nathaniel sensed the danger and turned around, it was already too late. The sharp blade had reached him, plunging viciously into his body. Novia acted wildly, muttering to herself in a low voice, gazing at the crimson on the dagger. She grew even more excited as she spoke. "It's all your fault. You got what you deserved. If you hadn't left, my father wouldn't have discovered those shameful things. He wouldn't have married me off to a wretched old man. Nathaniel, I'll hate you forever. Just die already." Then, she suddenly charged toward Molly, running swiftly with bloodshot eyes. And her too. "If it weren't for her stealing you away, you would never have left me." With that, she ran out like a madwoman. Nathaniel passed out, but in the end, he gritted through the pain, got up, and chased after her. Novia drove recklessly through the wedding venue. By the time Molly realized what was happening, Novia was already wielding that dagger, charging fiercely into the crowd and slashing wildly. Matthew saw the cause of the commotion and rushed into the crowd to protect his sister, but it was already too late. Everyone thought Molly couldn't escape, but someone forcefully pushed her aside. Novia struck with all her might, only to realize the person before her wasn't Molly, but Nathaniel. Everyone gasped in shock. Novia's hand trembled as she collapsed to the ground. No, Nathaniel. Nathaniel fainted, and the last moment before losing consciousness, he only looked at Molly. She was safe, and he could finally rest assured. Nathaniel was taken to the hospital, while Novia was led away by others. Molly, while waiting outside the ward, she only saw the assistant hurrying over. Nathaniel, how is he? Molly shook her head, unsure how to respond. Matthew stood behind her, also hanging his head low. The assistant understood everything upon seeing their reactions. Everyone was waiting outside the operating room, waiting for Nathaniel. But the nurse inside came out and informed the assistant about his current condition. Molly watched as the assistant followed the nurse away, her heart once again lodged in her throat. A few minutes later, the assistant walked over and said to Molly with a smile, "Now Novia has been arrested, and Nathaniel is not seriously injured. You can rest assured, if you really want to see him, come back tomorrow. Also, Miss Molly, thank you for coming to see him." Molly finally let out a sigh of relief, her whole body relaxing as she repeatedly agreed. But Matthew noticed something was amiss. He just glanced at the operating room from afar and said nothing. He understood the meaning behind those words. Only after watching the two leave did the assistant panic and rush into the operating room. "Mr. Nathaniel, Miss Molly has already left. Don't worry, but do you really never plan to see Miss Molly again?" Nathaniel smiled, closed his eyes, and a tear rolled down from the corner of his eye. "That's good. I already owe her too much. This lifetime won't be enough to repay it all." The next day, when Molly returned to the hospital, she found that Nathaniel and his assistant had vanished without a trace, completely disappearing into the crowd. After that, Molly never saw him again. Molly gradually became a mystery novelist, with endless book signings and royalties rolling in, not to mention numerous publishers knocking on her door. Meanwhile, Nathaniel, in a remote southern town, leaning on his cane, gazed at the radiant and beautiful Molly displayed in the large glass frame outside the mall. Smiling happily, she remained as stunning as ever, just like when she was with him, returning to her vibrant self once more. On the day Molly remarried, nearly all her book fans showed up. The wedding scene was bustling with excitement, and the one she married was still the Matthew who had always stood by her side, supporting and helping her. On that day, Nathaniel was also invited, but he didn't attend. He didn't want to hurt Molly again, so he kept himself hidden and had someone else send him the current video. He kept imagining, what would Molly look like in a pure white wedding dress? Today he saw that she was indeed beautiful, with a smile at the corner of her lips, gazing tenderly at her beloved. Matthew also saw Nathaniel's people, but he said nothing, for there was no malice in their eyes. They simply wanted to document the moment. As for this rival, a man's instinct told him that he truly loved Molly. It seemed as if Nathaniel merely wanted to witness this wedding. Molly walked toward the man she loved, leaving behind the pain her marriage had once brought her. She placed her hand in his. "What if you've misjudged again, and this man turns out to be no good either?" Molly smiled, with a courage that seemed ready to face any challenge. "It doesn't matter. I'll never cry over spilled milk again. I will always love myself." Nathaniel naturally heard it too, as everyone stepped forward to offer their blessings. The video ended, and he silently walked outside alone, carrying his luggage. His leg was already broken, the muscle damaged beyond repair. Yet he always felt it was worth it, because his injury had bought happiness for the one he loved. Then, he boarded a plane and flew abroad, resuming his life as a mercenary. But this time, it was no longer for money, it was for Molly. He told everyone that his only reward was that if one day Molly was in trouble or bullied again, they could step in to help her. After all, he couldn't protect her for a lifetime. Better to let others safeguard this debt of gratitude. Nathaniel became even fiercer on the battlefield, hardly concerned for his own life, focused only on completing the mission. When others asked why he was so reckless, he just smiled and said nothing. After all, he knew that the harder he worked now, Molly, the more support she would have in the future. He never wanted to see her tearful eyes again. But a man with a wounded leg wouldn't always be lucky. When he went on another mission, he suddenly realized that Molly's photo on his chest was missing. Disregarding the danger, he turned back and finally found the photo in a corner. Come back quickly, hurry up and come back." His comrades began shouting desperately at him. Sensing something was wrong, he quickly dropped to the ground. But the bullet still pierced through his right thigh, causing him to grunt in pain. He crawled forward inch by inch, clutching tightly Molly's photo in his hand. His comrades eventually reached him and swiftly took him away for treatment, but he only felt time slowing down. His mind growing faint, he could no longer sense the pain, only a warm, comforting sensation enveloping his entire body. In his hand, he still clutched Molly's photo, now soaked in blood, her face no longer visible. He murmured his final words as his comrades knelt beside him, mourning in sorrow. His last words were, "I'm sorry, Molly, I'm sorry."